U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said Ukraine will be getting $215 million in emergency food assistance, with more aid expected in the future.
So I asked President Putin, if you have any heart at all, to please open these ports. Please assure everyone concerned that the passageways will be clear so that we can feed.
Joining us now for more discussions is Professor Femi Olufumilade, Director at the Buratai Center for Contemporary Security Affairs, Igbinedion University, Edo State. Thank you, Professor, for joining us at this time.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Good morning to you. Let's begin with the cities that have been captured by Russia. We have Kherson, Melitopol, Bryansk, Enado, and Mariupol. However, President Zelensky of Ukraine is saying, and he's confident, that Kyiv will take back these cities. How do you think, how easy will this be for them?
Well, the truth of the matter is that Russia's initial war plan seems to have failed. Their initial plan, you may recall, when President Putin was inciting Ukrainian troops to take out their commander-in-chief in the person of President Zelensky. He thought it was just going to be like eating an apple to overrun Ukraine. When that failed, he concentrated efforts and a lot on Kyiv, the capital of the country. And we witnessed a lot of bombardment going on. And eventually, the resistance was beyond what they anticipated, and they had to beat a retreat. And you can see that the United States has reopened its embassy in Kyiv now. Now, regarding the areas that were captured, the issue will be how to hold the ground in those places. Are they going to deploy troops just to keep those cities? I don't think they will want to do that, because they will then need thousands and thousands of troops to be guarding empty cities, because most Ukrainians in those places have been evacuated. Eventually, they will, of their own volition, have to beat a retreat. That is what I see coming. And then, of course, the Ukrainians, the fact that they abandoned those places doesn't mean that they have given up. You can see that there have been some villages that the Russians captured before, that they have recaptured from them. I believe they just went back to the drawing table and see how they could get those cities back. And it's like the president, whom you just quoted, said, it's only a matter of time before they will get those places back, because there is not, Russia cannot afford to keep troops perpetually in those places in the number required to withstand a counterattack to retake those cities by Ukraine. I just think what they are trying to do is to destroy as much of Ukraine as they can. And I don't know what clear objective, they stand to gain in that kind of policy, because up till now, I personally have tried to analyze what actually are the new objectives. The initial objective was regime change. It was clear. But now I don't know what the new objective is. The stated objective is that they want to demilitarize Ukraine. That is, they want to render it militarily toothless. But they are not achieving that. The other day, when they were trying to cross a bridge in the region of Ukraine, they met serious disaster, and accounts. We had accounts that hundreds of military tanks were destroyed, and close to 1,000 Russian troops were mauled, were put out of action. So Ukraine has been able to put up a resistance that the Russians never anticipated. And you need to give it to the citizens of Ukraine apart from women and children and the elderly, most of the young people felt it was their patriotic duty to stay back. Even those that didn't have combat experience, they started learning how to use guns and to assist. Some help in cooking food, some help in, logistics efforts. So it's Russia never bargained for what they are saying. It's the whole country that is mobilized to resist, both combatants and non-combatants alike. And I don't see Russia keeping those cities perpetually, like I earlier said, because the Ukrainians are going to come back to take their cities. Even the areas that were liberated already from the Russians, watch clips where people are returning. This is our city, and they've started clearing the debris.
Going back to rebuild their lives. Yes, Professor, I just want to touch on, let's talk about what you mentioned earlier, about the U.S. reopening its embassy in Kiev, and that's after abandoning that diplomatic post just before the Russian invasion began. What do you think is America's strategy or reason for doing this at this time? Because Ukraine is still technically at war.
Well, America is doing that for a couple of reasons. One is to be a morale booster for the authorities in Kiev. It's a way of saying we are with you. And then, of course, America will be able to use its for intelligence gathering also, to give intelligence support in the course of this war. With American embassy on the ground there, a lot of American agents, of course, will be able to legitimately return to Kiev and be able to give up-to-date report on the state of the war, first-hand report to the authorities back in Washington, D.C. And their military advisors will be able to move into the embassy to give advice based on satellite imaging and other intelligence they are able to gather in support of the war. The United States is supporting the war in every way possible, short of actually deploying troops. In terms of equipment, in terms of funding, over $200 million was recently approved again for food supplies. So that now that Ukraine is unable to, the agriculture there is disrupted, the troops and the civilian population will not suffer food shortages. So the reopening of the embassy is both a diplomatic action. It's also what I may call a strategic action too, because like I have already painted the picture of what they stand to do, in support of the war by mobilizing their military advisors into the embassy in Kiev.
Oh, it's no news that, this war is affecting the global community in every aspect and every industry. And like you've mentioned, the West and its allies are keen on seeing this end as soon as possible. How long do you see things continuing?
Well, it is better to assume, a worst-case scenario. This is a kind of war of attrition that you cannot predict exactly when it's going to end. And more so, the Russians themselves appear to have become confused as to what their real purpose is. What do they stand to? What do they want to really achieve? When they are resisted in one region, they move to another region, and so on and so forth. So, but my own worry is I don't know how long Ukraine will be able to continue to being on the defensive and experiencing all the destruction to its infrastructure and the killing of its people. I am anticipating a situation where Ukraine may gradually move from being defensive to go on the offensive, because it is said that the best form of defense is offense. because Russia seems not to be losing anything in terms of, apart from its combatants and its military equipment, whereas indiscriminately it's targeting civilian locations, it's destroying infrastructure, power plants, water processing systems, etc. So if Ukraine remains on the defensive, the whole country might as well get destroyed. So I guess that it's going to get to a point where they won't be able to take it anymore, and they may also move proactively into targeting Russian cities and infrastructure. And so the war can drag on. It can be a war that can still continue for the next 5-6 years. It's like the war between Russia, USSR, and Afghanistan. You know, it took a couple of years. We do hope. Scenario.
Professor, I was saying we do hope that is not the case, you know, for 5-6 years, but we'd like to thank you so much, Professor Femi Olufumilade, for joining us, Director at the Buratai Center for Contemporary Security Affairs, Igbinedion University. Thank you again.
You're welcome.